Alan and I will now demonstrate the proper way to install a capillary column into a gas chromatography inlet. First, we want to make sure we have all our necessary tools and other equipment that we will need to do the job, because that will make life a lot easier for everyone. First, we're going to put our marker for our nut so we get the proper insertion into the injector port. A simple septum is all that's needed. Then we have our injector port nut, our column nut, which is directional, which means, and I'm going to ask Alan to hand me the ferrule.
Sure. So we have a wide selection of ferrules, both materials and sizes. It's important that you use the correct size for a particular size column. We have a handy little chart on the back of our ferrule packages to help you decide which ferrule you need. This is a 0.25 column, so we need a 0.4 millimeter ferrule. Lee, one tapered 4 millimeter ferrule, 0.4.
And the tapered side goes down into the nut. And if you look at the nut, you'll see why that is. And I'm just threading the needle here. So now we're through our first step. And now Alan will demonstrate how to properly cut a column, which is another important step.
So as we thread the septum, the ferrule, onto the column, there is a possibility that some of that material can actually end up inside the column. To preclude that possibility, we actually remove a centimeter or two of the column in order to get a nice fresh piece of that column, and any of the crud that happens to be in there will then fall off. So here's how you trim that column. You find yourself a scribe like this. Here's an official PerkinElmer scribe, ceramic scribe. The scribes typically have two different sides. One side will feel rough and the other side will feel smooth. You can feel that one side is somewhat serrated. For this purpose, we want the smooth side. I then hold the column such that it touches my index finger. I put the scribe at approximately a 45-degree angle and perpendicular to the column, and I gently yet firmly draw the scribe across. Now, you don't want to saw it, you just want to give it a nice little cut like that. And see, I was a little too strong. I know that because the column fell off. So let's try it a little more gently this time. All right? And if I did that correctly, what will happen is when I touch that column, it'll fall off. Good practice would dictate that you find a magnifying glass and examine the end of that tip to make sure that it's clean, no jagged edges, no pieces of crud. But we'll just assume I did it correctly.
Yeah, jagged edges is a source of active sites, so that cut is critical. So now we need to find how far are we going to insert our column in our injector port.
Right. Insertion depth is critical. So if it's in too far, you will not get good results, and of course it's not in far enough, the thing might fall out. So we have a little utility here on the front panel of the GC. So I'll navigate to that section. Utilities, it turns out it's called column length calculator. We can find the correct insertion depth for any of the inlets or detectors that we have on PerkinElmer GC. So we're capillary here, we're a standard capillary injector. The utility says Lee 44 to 51 millimeters. So find your ruler.
Nice. First I'm going to wipe it down with a little bit of methanol, because Alan and I may have introduced some of our fatty acids. We always make sure our hands are clean, but we're using gloves to protect the instrument, not to protect us.
Now the distance is measured from the back of the nut to the required distance. So a little different than maybe some other ways of measuring.
And my preference is to go on the low side, so I am going to do 45 millimeters. Now we're ready to install the column in the injector port. So you find the opening and you keep the nut close to the septum.
Right. Note that Lee is doing this with two hands. One hand is pushing the column up. At this point, the column could potentially fall down. That's why she's holding it up. And now she'll tighten up the nut and the ferrule such that the ferrule grabs onto the column. Don't want to over tighten it. You want it just tight enough to grab and to form a leak-free connection, but not so tight that you crush the column. Looks like you're about there, Lee.
Yep, I'm bringing down the column and it's not coming out. I want to go another 1/8 of an inch, not too much torque. That's enough. I gently pushed it until it couldn't go any further with that strength, and now we're set.